5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In your face, all over the place.
We're online 24/7. 24/7.
You're listening to the hottest internet station.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world at sunsky.mysteries.com.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
This message is transmitted at the request of the United States Office of Civil Defense. At 3:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, NORAD detected a long-range nuclear missile launch in North Korea.
This government doesn't want things in the public. It's not a government, a transparent government.
You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Totalitarianism doesn't need armies. It only needs to control a couple of things: the media and the ability to dispense privilege to some and withhold it from others. Of course, a weak and divided people helps.
What do you say to those who think that shouldn't concern them?
Problem is that if they think they're not doing anything that's wrong, they don't get to define that. The central government does. The central government defines what is right and wrong and whether or not they target you. So it's not up to the individual, even if they think they're doing something wrong. If their position on something is against what the administration has, then they could easily become a target.
There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immense, interwoven, interactive, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichsmarks, rims, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet.
Well, good evening, everybody. Bill Zam here. I trust that everybody is doing just fine. Welcome to another exciting episode of Surrounded by Idiots, starring me, Bill Zam. I'm just going to do a quick show tonight, so let's get right to it, shall we? The chief lecturer gave us a lecture today in the Rose Garden to tell us how rosy the economy is and how great of a recovery that we are in. Never mind, it's all a lie, every damn word of it.
By the time I took office, the economy was shrinking by an annual rate of more than 8%. Our businesses were shedding 800,000 jobs each month. It was a perfect storm that would rob millions of Americans of jobs and homes and savings that they had worked a lifetime to build.
Well, of course, this is the old, worse than we even knew excuses that have been with us for many, many years. But it's never their fault, you see. Not ever. And it wasn't 800,000 a month. It was between 6 and 700,000. And don't forget that the real bottom dropped out after Obama got elected because everyone damn well knew that Keynesian economics was coming like a freight train down the hill with no brakes. And don't forget the cause of this virus, of this crisis. It was Barney Frank and the rest of the clown factory insisting that subprime mortgages be lent out. And those were then sold and sold and sold until there was no value left in them, and the guy at the bottom of the pyramid got the shaft, and then they bailed them all out. They were worthless pieces of paper, and every damn one of them didn't tell the next guy in line that they were worthless. It was a swindle brought about by the Democratic, liberal, socialist machine in Washington. We were told It was so bad that nothing was going to work very soon. So bad that it would take years and years for anything to work. But here's the thing, folks. Just wait one damn minute. If the economy was shrinking by 8% a year, it would have been the very worst depression in recorded history. If that had been the case, we would have had soup lines. The government would have had nothing coming in taxes. Think about that. 8%, whatever. It's just another lie. And now they're jumping up and down doing high fives over 1% growth. Good God. Okay, here's the next clip.
Over the last 3.5 years, our businesses have added 7.5 million new jobs. The unemployment rate has come down. Our housing market is healing. Our financial system is safer. Healthcare costs are growing at the slowest rate in 50 years. And just 2 weeks from now, millions of Americans who've been locked out of buying health insurance just because they had a pre-existing condition, just because they've been sick or they couldn't afford it, they're finally going to have a chance to buy quality, affordable health care on the private marketplace. What all this means is we've cleared away the rubble from the financial crisis, and we've begun to lay a new foundation for economic growth and
Sorry. I just have to say that's horseshit. They've cleaned away the rubble from the financial crisis. How about this? QE3. They're pumping billions and billions of dollars into the stock market every month. What rubble? They're creating more rubble. They're building themselves a nice tower of Babel, and they're going to use dynamite to blow that up in the end. These lies are becoming so bad that I think that right now we are actually in a 1984-style government. Totalitarian government is here. When the president can get up there and spout lies like this that Richard Nixon only thought of telling, then not only is there something wrong, this has become very, very dangerous. The way this works is exactly the same. They just make up things like the old Soviet Union, and the statist media lap it up and crap it out on the public like it's the truth. And it's bullshit is all it is. Hot, steaming piles of it. And that 7 million jobs crap is just that. Take a look at the birth rate over the past 7 years and add the number of immigrants. That's over 7 million, almost 8 million. So it's really a loss of 11 million jobs. Good God. Does this never, ever end? All of this spouting of crap? They're all doing it. Okay, let's listen to another so-called clip.
The top 1% of Americans took home 20% of the nation's income last year, while the average worker isn't seeing a raise at all. In fact, that understates the problem. Most of the gains have gone to the top 1/10 of 1%. So in many ways, the trends that have taken hold over the past few decades of a winner-take-all economy, where a few do better and better and better, while everybody else just treads water or loses ground, that's what we should be focused on.
Yeah, that's what we should be focused on. It's getting even worse. The level of deceit is amazing. The top 1% takes home 20% of the income. Now, let's take a look at this. He's been president for 5 years now, and it's his policies that are causing this. And don't tell me that everyone is going behind his back on this. It's the QE3 money that his backers and donors are getting. That's where your 1% is. Now, there's an AP story about the 1%. Most of them live and work in Washington, D.C. And another thing that dovetails into this, and it's about the income gap in this country that is growing under the Obama administration. The income gap is widening. So all of his pissing and moaning and wringing of hands and telling everybody how wonderful it is nothing but a lie. The 1% is getting richer and richer than the 99%, and it is sliding. We are sliding into deep poverty is what's happening. The median income in this country is $51,000 per household. $51,000. That's the median monthly average. That's not the average. There are as many making less than that $51,000 as there are making more than $51,000. What this means is that there are as many households earning above that number as there are households earning less. I hope you understand that. There are 4 counties in the United States where the median income is over $100,000 a year. Okay? That $51,000 median. Remember that? There are 4 counties where the median income is over $100,000. In other words, that's the 50% mark. There are a lot of people making over $100,000 in those 4 counties, and all but one of them are in suburban Washington. The 4th one is in New Mexico. We also know that all of Washington, primarily the suburbs, there was no recession. Unemployment rate in the metro Washington area is 3.5% to 4%. And now the median household income is $51,000 in America. But the people in Washington are doing just fine. Their median income is $100,000. There is no recession there. There is no unemployment. And now the congressional staffers say they can't afford Obamacare, so they have their exemption from Obamacare. In the meantime, you and I, the 95%ers, are sitting here figuring out how the hell we're going to pay our bills and for our health care. And don't give me any crap about subsidies to help pay for it. The first year, you are on your own. You don't get that subsidy until in the second year, in 2014. You don't get it until then. You won't see a penny until the second year, so you're always a year behind. And who pays for it? That's right, yourself and everyone else. So you're giving yourself some money is what's happening. The government's going to take it, and they're going to give you a percentage of it back. The Congress is exempted from this fine health care plan. Here, take a look at what is going to be asked of you the next time you go to your doctor's office. This comes from the New York Post. The Obamacare questionnaire will question your sex life. The question is, are you sexually active? If so, with one partner, multiple partners, or same-sex partners? Well, guess what? I have an answer for that. My answer is 45, split evenly between men and women. And if they raise an eyebrow, I'm going to ask if there are any volunteers in the doctor's office to help me get it up to an even 50. Ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. Get a clue, folks. Get a clue, and we got to start fighting this stuff. They ask you a stupid question, give them a stupid answer. The hell with it. Screw them. They don't see what's wrong. Of course, the Democratic and the Republican parties are compromised of people that just don't get it at all. The little guy gets crushed while they take their share of the pie and complain about how the 1% is doing all of this. I guess at this point, we have to eat cake. When it has never really been the case with the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, back when they were actual conservatives instead of the same progressive socialists that the Democrats are, has always been for everybody doing better. That's the thing about conservatives that nobody tells you about. We want everybody to do well. We believe that in an economy that expands and accommodates anybody who wants to work hard. But the problem is we have people that don't want to work hard. They don't want to do anything but sit on their fat asses and collect money. But now it appears that there's nobody looking out for the little guy. None of these people are. Everybody's looking out for themselves in this time of economic malaise. It appears that the leaders are the ones that have always cared about the middle class, and what was happening to those people are now absorbed in grabbing as much as they can. Let me rephrase that. It appears that the leaders, who were once the ones that always cared about the middle class and what was happening to those people, are now absorbed in grabbing as much as they can. This has become a demented system, absolutely demented. It always used to be that we would have people who, by virtue of the notion of service or ideological beliefs, wanted to have things so that economics could be something that everybody would benefit in and from. The future right now is so dismal that even among the ruling class in Washington, they've decided to grab everything before it all collapses around their pointy heads. So now I'm forced to sit here and tell you about things like that. It's getting worse and worse, and Obama is just fueling the fire. One has to wonder what his end game is. We know from history how these people work. They ruin a country, and when everyone has had enough and rises up, that's when you replace the whole system with something that you prefer. In this case, I suspect it's going to be a complete gutting of the Constitution, and that's when we will have the actual USSA. You haven't seen anything yet. So I have to say something. That's about all I can hope to do at this point. Getting up and getting out there isn't working. It's not working. We all have to do it together. It's almost like, in Washington, it's every man for himself mentality. It used to be women and children got off the boat first. Now that's not true. The ruling class gets first shot at the lifeboats, and who's left on the boat sinks with it. Tough shit. They just want to make sure they're nowhere around when it happens. It's called social Darwinism. Thousands of people in the ruling class in Washington have found a way to take care of themselves, and you and I can go to hell as far as they are concerned. Those counties in the Washington suburbs have the wealth, and in the meantime, people that are making less than $25,000 a year are at a 20% unemployment rate. So the next time one of them spouts off about caring for the little guy, tell them what you've learned, that they are liars. Incidentally, TEPCO says Fukushima is out of control. Totally and completely out of control. And it's getting hit by a typhoon. Yay! Yay! Let's have some crowd cheering. TEPCO is Fukushima is out of control. TEPCO says so. Yay! And the typhoon is washing all the radioactive water right into the ocean. Even more of it. So much for the damn ice wall they were going to build. And now, our next story is you will have to go to the government to be a journalist. In its attempt to define who's a journalist and who's not, the U.S. Senate is trying to say that Thomas Paine, who is a corset maker, by the way, you can imagine them fashion shows, wouldn't have deserved the same protections from government heavy-handedness as a newspaper publisher like Ben Franklin. The first version of a media shield law that handily made it through the Senate Judiciary Committee on Thursday defined for the first time what constitutes a real reporter, deserving an extra protection versus what Senator Feinstein calls a 17-year-old blogger who doesn't deserve a legal shield. So why is this bad? If you look at the Constitution, they are forbidden to abridge any of the freedom of speech rights, whether or not it pertains to journalists or not. Doesn't matter. When one looks at the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, they will discover that a journalist is simply a writer of a journal or a diary. In other words, in the modern era, a blog is nothing more than a journal. Now keep in mind my personal point of view as a journalist that began writing for a newspaper in 1975 while I was in high school. In 1988, I started a dial-in BBS with custom coding that created a newspaper-style community resource. I had like 6 phone lines coming in and a bunch of modems hooked up to my Commodore 64 that was running a BBS. It was very popular. In 1990, I moved that BBS-style dial-in newspaper to the Internet, where it became a daily online newspaper in 1990. At the time, there were less than 5 newspapers doing that. I had investigative reporters in Central America reporting on the hot crap mess going on down there at that time, and nobody else was doing it. I will point out that I did not attend journalism school, so I have not been indoctrinated. I was afforded all the rights of a journalist and still am. I was invited to NASA as a journalist because of my online newspaper, my keeping of a daily journal of news. All for doing nothing other than keeping a journal of daily events. And now these ass clowns want to take that away. It's perfect. So, or, as I put it at Breitbart, which probably would not be considered a journalist outfit under this crap law that they're coming up with, here's what Breitbart says. Is the federal government going to take measures to force bloggers who have been key to exposing corruption in government over the past decade to go to journalism school so they can get their reports approved by the White House before publishing them? It seems to me that is exactly where all of this is going. It is an attempt to quash freedom of speech and freedom of the press, something that the Constitution does not give to the federal government. They are not interested in dealing with criminal activity of the NSA or the executive branch. They are interested in squeezing off the life of freedom of the American people to know the truth about what their government is doing and exposing the corruption that exists inside of it. Once again, Dianne Feinstein has reared her ugly head and shown us the even uglier face of tyranny. And now for the final story of this particular show. This is from the Global Cooling website. Here is their September 13th, September 2013 entry. Global hurricane energy is at 25% of normal. In other words, it's down 75% through early September. No Atlantic hurricanes this year. Almost the longest period in history without one. But I believe there is a tropical storm coming on shore over there in Mexico. So there's been one. The best and most accurate way to measure global temperatures are from satellites that measure atmospheric temperatures. They have an atmospheric temperature chart that has changed since the start of the measurement, starting in 1979. Let's take a look at that. And here you go. This is from Roy Spencer, Ph.D. He's a climatologist. Let's take a look at the average temperatures. Okay, there we go. I had to zoom in on that. Here you go. Take a look at this. Right over here, where we are currently, doesn't look like it's going up, because 1983 is right here, 1987, 1999 it was real high. You can see it just goes up and down and up and down and up and down right across the median temperature. Though the 2011-2012 winter temperatures were warm in the United States, global temperatures were the 11th coolest in 32 years of satellite measurement. Total global polar ice extent is largely unchanged over the past 30 years. When adding the sea ice volumes at both poles, there is about the same ice as there was 30 years ago. Antarctica has 90% of the world's ice and had the most sea ice ever recorded at the end of 2008, over 1 million square kilometers above the average maximum. Global sea ice extent today, combined sea ice at both poles, is nearly the same as the average of the past 30 years, according to NASA. View today's Antarctic sea extent compared to the 1979 to 2007 average at the National Snow and Ice Data Center. And there's a couple of links there. Let's go to one of those and see what this guy has come up with. And there you go. Antarctic sea ice extent. You can see, here it goes, up instead of down. And your the dotted line is 2012, and the blue line is 2013. You can see how much more above average the 2013 ice level is. The Bering Sea off Alaska in 2012 had the most ice area ever recorded. The Antarctic sea ice extent in September 2009 is also growing and is 1 million square kilometers more than it was the previous year. And this goes on and on and on. It is at, and you can see this guy's got a ton of links. It is at the Global Cooling Information website. And here we go. Is there global cooling? It is istthereglobalcooling.com. And there you go. That is about it for tonight's show. Thank you for listening and putting up with my yelling and screaming.